All right, so there's a classic fallacy in entrepreneurship of basically changing acquisition channels or not being able to decide on an acquisition channel. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that and how you can actually choose one or how you know when to switch when it's time to switch channels. By the way, I recommend watching this video at least 1.5 times speed, if not 2 times speed. You can hit shift and the greater than symbol on your keyboard to speed it up if you're on a computer. Um, Now, let's talk about the different channels of acquisition, okay? So there's a few different channels that everyone is familiar with. So if we take something like outbound, so outbound would be things like cold calling. Oh my gosh, this is going to take forever. Cold has two L's, cold calling, email, and then you have things like paid ads, which would be like Facebook and Instagram ads or TikTok ads or whatever. There's a bunch of different ways that you can acquire customers, and one of the most common ones that people start out with is outbound, okay? But what happens is, let's say your business is getting to $1 million per year, okay? And in order to get to $1 million per year, or let's say you added $1 million in ARR in 1 year, and in order to do that, you had a team of 20 cold callers who were doing all your cold calling. Um, and then the question is, what are you actually trying to do now? And this is why I really like to try to drive home this point of optimization and knowing what you're actually optimizing for. Because if you were optimizing to just have a nice lifestyle business where it generates $1 million in free cash flow per year, and you can just play golf and fuck around, then maybe you don't even want to try to grow this number. Maybe $1 million is enough and you're happy with that, and you want to try to spin this into content, like add on a small content wing so that you can eventually get rid of the cold callers, because that might take a lot of work to maintain. So that might be an option for you just because you're optimizing for keeping things simple. But usually your goal is not just to maintain. Usually you have a few different goals. So you're either like a solo founder where you're like, all right, great. So we added $1 million ARR this year. Let's try to add $2 million ARR this year, okay? And that's like a great goal for you. Or if you're a VC funded startup and you added $1 million ARR this year, you might have like a requirement. You might be like, all right, in order to raise our Series C or whatever and hit these goals, we need to add like 5 million ARR this year. And this might not be realistic. This might be, but just kind of bear with me. So now that we have this question of what are we optimizing for, now we can actually go about looking at this situation, okay? Because we have 20 cold callers making us $1 million ARR, and what we should do is we should look at this and say, okay, if I want to get to 2 million ARR this year, and I got to 1 million ARR with 20 cold callers, could I feasibly just double my amount of cold callers? Because if the math follows, we would double our sales or new revenue added. And if the answer to that question is yes, so if we can just double this, so if we say times 2, if we can just double this and hit our goal, then we should just double it and hit our goal, because this is so much easier than spending a bunch of money on paid ads or cold email or content just to see which one works. Because the thing with acquisition is, I mean, there's experts out there that actually kind of know what they're doing, but at the end of the day, marketing is more of a science than a math, okay? So you can think something's going to work really well, but at the end of the day, you have to actually test it out and see how the market responds. And so it's easier and simpler to just double whatever you're doing or increase the quality in order to grow. But if we come back to this example and we say, okay, now our goal is 5 million bucks, then potentially we can't just 5 times the amount of cold callers. I mean, we're going to have to add middle management. Where are we going to find all the cold callers? I'm just trying to kind of make up, problems here. But in the case where we have a limitation on this channel and we know we can't use it to hit our goals, then the answer to this question changes, and all of a sudden we need to find another acquisition channel, okay? So that's essentially how you should think about should I change acquisition channels? Because if the channel you have right now is working and there's room to scale it up without like going overboard and killing your business trying to do this, then it makes sense. Then it absolutely makes sense to do it because it's super straightforward. I mean, it's gonna work, right? You already know it works on a smaller scale, and you don't have to scale it up by that much to improve it. So it absolutely makes sense to scale it up. But if your goal is really high and you know you can't use whatever you're doing right now to scale it up, then you want to start looking into different acquisition channels. Okay, like in this case, you might look into paid ads, you might look into content, and you might look into, I don't know, other types of like outbound, like email. Okay, and so that's most of my thoughts so far. I'll just say one thing on this really quickly, which is that basically you have to think about what the costs are for each of these. So for paid ads, you're gonna have the cost of like media, basically, like how much does it cost to show the ads, potentially like an agency too or something. And then content, you're gonna have probably something like a salary where you're paying someone to create the videos for you. And then email, you're gonna have the cost of infrastructure. Okay, and one thing that, I mean, it's kind of a little bit, tricky to say like this one is the best, this one isn't, because it depends on the situation, and you kind of have to have knowledge on them to know like how they work and if they'll work for you. But you can kind of pick one. And you can say, you know what, based on our business model, based on, like for instance, if you're running, let's say, okay, so let's say you're selling like face masks, in like the beauty niche, and they're like some aloe face mask, and it's like super satisfying to see it spread on, and then you peel it off, and it's cool. That works really well with paid media because you can create like a really cool looking kind of ad that draws people in and hooks them, and that gives you an advantage over other companies that are selling something like IT services, where it's much harder to create a compelling creative. So maybe you know that because of that, media is a good choice for you, like paid media. Or if you know that, there's a lot of kind of, like if you're in the development space, I think content's a great thing because there's always people trying to do new things and learn things. And so you can create content for those people and use that to market your product. So you can kind of think about it in that way and figure out like, okay, what might be a good channel for our product based on kind of what's available. But then you still might end up with a few different choices. Let's say you could do this one or this one. Well, you probably don't want to try them both at the same time. Like you probably don't want to just, go all in on both of them. That doesn't make sense. So what you can do is you can say, all right, let's allocate. If you're just a solo founder, maybe you should put like a value on your time because both of these are going to cost some amount of money and some amount of time. So let's say if you value your own time at like $25 an hour, and then you say paid media is going to be like, $1,000 in ads or whatever. What we'll say is let's just assign $1,000 to each of these channels, and just see what kind of results we can get. Okay, because maybe one of them's not going to scale the best, but at the end of the day, it's not about 10 years from now. Like business is a competitive game and it changes quickly. It's about what can we do to get the best results right now. That goes back to this, which is why we chose to scale up cold calling. If it made sense, it's because if it's already working, we might as well keep using it, right? Exploration and exploitation. Oftentimes it's better to exploit than to explore different options. And so with this, kind of the easiest way to simplify it is just to assign a certain amount of spend, which would be, maybe in this case, that's $600 in ads, and then that's going to be 400 divided by 25, and that's going to be 16 hours of time, okay? And just see what kind of results you can get. And then in this case, we might do, if it's content, that might be like $50 in spend, and then plus, what would the remainder be? It would be 950 divided by 25. That'll be 38 hours, okay? So what you can do is, once you've done both of these things, you're going to be doing them at the same time, and it's not going to be very efficient, and one of them might just bomb. But after this test, you should have an idea of which one is working the best, and then you can just go all in on that. So that's how I recommend kind of choosing your acquisition strategy. By the way, I'm building a new website for my agency. I'll put it below. If you want help with marketing your business or just automating different aspects of your business, book a call below or fill out the form, and yeah, we can get in touch. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.